Demographic data for Princeton and Yale's class of 2028 has been released. What does it say about how admissions decisions are currently being carried out at these two Ivy League institutions? That is the topic of today's video. My name is Craig Meister. I'm a college admissions coach. You can learn more about me and how you can work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process on my website, which is collegemeister.com. And if you're interested in learning about whether or not you are or your student is on track for selective college admission in the United States of America, visit areyouontracktogetin.com. Again, that's areyouontracktogetin.com, at which you will complete a free 3-minute assessment. Your results will be emailed to you right away, and they will help you clarify whether or not you are or your student is on track for selective college admission in the United States of America. Let's first look at Princeton. Its class of 2027 was reported to have 26% Asian American, 14% international, 10% Hispanic or Latino, 9% Black or African American, 7% multiracial, and roughly high 20s to low 30s for the white population. And I'm saying the roughly number for white because they didn't actually write it out on the Princeton website. They just sort of left it to the imagination because, at least for the class of 2027, white was not apparently considered diverse enough to list in their diversity chart. For the class of 2028, we have as follows: 23.8% Asian American, 8.9% Black or African American, 9% Hispanic or Latino, 12% international citizens, 7.2% multiracial, 31% white, and 7.7% unknown. Now, we see unknown and white now on the chart, whereas last year we did not see white and unknown, so we really don't have that information, at least from that chart. I could dig into the census data. I'm not going to do it. The basic moral of the story is for Princeton is I'm calling it a wash between one year and the next. Now, this is interesting because one year Princeton was allowed to practice affirmative action. The next year, Princeton was not allowed to practice affirmative action, yet even though they argued in front of the Supreme Court, or they submitted a brief to the Supreme Court, Princeton did, saying that without affirmative action, their demographic situation would become all messed up. What we see is that that has not happened. And the question is, why has that not happened? We'll get to that answer in a moment. But let's look at Yale as well. Yale, for its class of 2027, had 14% African American, 30% Asian American, 18% Hispanic or Latino, 3% Native American, and 42% white, and 12% international. For its class of 2028, we have 46% white at Yale. So that number has gone up 4 percentage points. But at the same time, the Asian American numbers have dropped from 30% to 24%. Hispanic or Latino have gone up from 18 to 19%. So that's just 1 percentage point. African American has remained completely the same, 14%. And international has gone down from 12 to 11%. And Native American has remained steady at 3%. So again, we're basically seeing a wash at Yale. Yale also submitted a brief to the Supreme Court saying that they needed affirmative action or all heck was going to break loose at Yale in terms of demographic composition of their entering classes. So how has this happened? It has happened as follows. It's very clear why it's happened. I want to make this very clear for everyone. Yale and Princeton have interpreted the Supreme Court ruling on affirmative action to mean that they are no longer able to consider students' racial status, but they are allowed to consider students' racial experiences. And where are they allowed to consider students' racial or ethnic experiences? In their essays. And so what Yale and Princeton have done is they have used their essay prompts to tease out from applicants information about their race and ethnicity, but in the context of their life experiences, also known as lived experiences in the new fangled language we live in, as opposed to just life. Lived experience is the term these days. And so when Yale is reviewing essay prompts or the responses to their essay prompts, most notably these two essay prompts, reflect on your membership in a community to which you feel connected. Why is this community meaningful to you? You may define community however you like. Some students may respond to that by talking about being a member of the computer science club at their school, and that's a really meaningful community to them. Other students may respond to that prompt by writing about being a member of the Black Student Union and why that's a really meaningful community to them and how they've contributed to the Black Student Union. And so that's how Yale is learning about students' ethnic and racial backgrounds, and they're digesting the information in their essay responses to be about their racial experiences, not about their racial statuses. And so that's how they can go to sleep at night at Yale and Princeton, or in this case, Yale, by saying, you know what, this student just talked about being a Black student and what that's meant to them. Or this student has just talked about what it means to be an Hispanic student in a primarily Black school. We need to accept this student because that's a unique experience, not because it's a unique race, but because it's a unique experience. So again, that's how they're justifying it. And that's how they'll have to justify it legally if they're ever brought a lawsuit against. It's all coming down to the essays, because the little wiggle room that Roberts, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, sort of mentioned in his extemporaneous decision. Basically, he was saying nothing in this decision prevents colleges from reading essays about students and learning about their grit or their value system or their character through the essays. Well, the colleges interpreted that to mean, oh, well, if it has to do with their racial grit or their ethnic character, not their necessarily ethnic status or their racial status, but the character that they've demonstrated through their race or ethnicity, that is now okay in the minds of the powers that be at Yale and Princeton. Here's another essay prompt that Yale had in its class of 2028 application. So this is for the students who are members of the class of 2028. So these are the people who applied in fall 2023. Reflect on an element of your personal experience. That's a key word that you feel will enrich your college. How has it shaped you? Again, that is particularly developed in such a way where if a student says, I have become stronger as a person because I am a young Latina, if that is what the essay writer wrote about, the experience is what Yale will argue is why they're accepting the student, not the fact that the person said they're strong Latina or whatever. But ultimately, Yale wanted the numbers Yale wanted, and Yale got the numbers Yale wanted. Princeton, they had an essay prompt as follows last year. Princeton values community and encourages students, faculty, staff, and leadership to engage in respectful conversations that can expand their perspectives and challenge their ideas and beliefs. As a prospective member of this community, reflect on how your lived experiences will impact the conversations you will have in the classroom, the dining hall, or the campus or other campus spaces. What lessons have you learned in life thus far? What will your classmates learn from you? In short, how has your lived experience shaped you? And you had 500 words to respond to that prompt. The other two essays, you had to pick one for Yale. Those were 400-word responses. So the marquee essays on both the Princeton and Yale supplements, the big essays, not the short essays, the big essays, are geared very much toward giving students an open-ended opportunity to share details about their identity and how it's informed their life experience. And that is why Yale and Princeton basically have the same demographics from the class of 2027 to the class of 2028. Again, there's a little movement around the edges, and particularly specifically related to maybe the Asian and white population, which are less important to the powers that be at Princeton and Yale than the Hispanic/Latino and the Black numbers at these institutions. So they got the numbers they wanted through the essays. It all comes down to the essays. This is so important that you understand it. Now, whether or not this is legal and in the spirit of the Supreme Court ruling is above my pay grade. I will say this, there will be ongoing litigation. Because remember, Princeton and Yale made the argument that without affirmative action specifically, the demographics would change very badly and diversity would be destroyed at these institutions. And we're not seeing it. We're not seeing it. So again, what's happened is they're going to say, well, the essay gave us carte blanche. I believe if you really read the full opinion of the Chief Justice Roberts, I do not believe it was his intention to say you could continue to develop the classes you want demographically purely based off what you learn about applicants racially and ethnically through their essays. But that's basically what Yale and Princeton have done. Princeton and Yale, now after a year of beta testing this, have made the determination that not only can they maintain the diversity that they want in their entering classes with test optional, at least Yale has made the decision that with test required, they'll still be able to pull this off. That's how many applicants they get from all different demographic groups. Princeton has not figured out how to do that. That is why they have not yet pulled the trigger on going back to test required. They'll probably do so eventually, but they need a little bit more time to make sure that they can pull off what they pulled off for the class of 2028 into perpetuity. Now, let's say you want to get into Princeton, Yale, or another college or university that accepts the Common App. You should listen up and listen up good right now, because I offer a new product called My Pre-Read. When you've finished your Common App and you want to know if it's as strong as possible and whether or not, in its current condition, your chances of admission are impressive, inconclusive, or inadequate, you want My Pre-Read. Getting My Pre-Read now means having me review your entire application, just like an admissions officer or an admissions committee will review it later, and receiving by email no later than the time you reserve a comprehensive report highlighting what's working and what's not working on your full Common App and one Common App supplement. If you've yet to submit your Common App to Princeton, Yale, or another college, My Pre-Read may motivate you to make adjustments to that Common App before your deadline to that college. If you've already submitted your Common App to Princeton, Yale, or another college or university that accepts the Common App, My Pre-Read will prepare you for what I deem to be your likely admissions outcome at Princeton, Yale, or any other college or university that accepts the Common App. To purchase My Pre-Read, go to mypreread.com. Again, that's mypreread.com. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. If you'd like to work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process, go to my website, which is collegemeister.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and most importantly, stay stress-free throughout the entire college admissions process.